Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sam.
And we're NV Board Gaming. And today we're going to be taking a look at one of my most anticipated games of this year, which is going to be Wayfarers of the South Tigris. This is designed by Shem Phillips and S.J. McDonald and published by Garfield Games. I'm going to show you how it works, and we'll come back and give you our final thoughts. All right, so I've already set up a game of Wayfarers of the South Tigris. Now I'm just going to give you a very high-level overview, advanced overview, whatever you want to call it. Because if I were to do an in-depth how to play video for this game, it would be quite lengthy. So I'm going to try to keep this somewhat short to just give you a feel for what you're doing in the game, and that way you can have an idea of how this works, okay? So in this game, players are going to be competing to score the most points. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game is going to win. Now the game is going to end whenever a player advances all the way up this journal track to the end. Once a player gets up here, everybody, including that person, is going to get one final turn, and then the game is going to go into final scoring. All right, so there is a bit of a race element here as you are advancing up to get to the end. All right, so on your turn, you're going to start with some resources, including coins, provisions. You're going to be getting some workers at the beginning. You're going to have influence that you're going to be placing out onto the guilds as well as the cards. And you're going to start with 3 dice. Now you will be able to acquire additional dice as you move up this journaling track. So on your turn, you're either going to be placing dice, placing workers, or resting. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the dice placement. So players are all going to start with their city board here. So this represents your capital city of Baghdad. Every player is going to have their starting space card, their starting sea card, as well as their land card. Okay, and then let's just say these are my starting dice. So on your turn, if you want to do dice placement as your action, you are going to be focusing here on your panorama. Okay, because you're going to have these dice locations, dice placement spots that you're going to be using, and some of them might have symbols that are requirements in order to go there. And as you see, a couple of them have symbols. So like your 6 is going to start with the telescope, your 1 is going to start with the camel, but you're going to be building up this caravan to enhance the values of your dice. So as you're playing the game, you're going to be acquiring a lot of these upgrades, whether they be these water ones, land upgrades. Might have point values or symbols that you're going to need, that you're going to be building up your caravan. And as you are covering up some of these symbols, you're going to be gaining those benefits and making the values of those dice a little bit stronger. So that way, when you go and visit these locations, you have everything you need. So for example, here, my 1 already has the camel, so I can go there, pay the provisions to gain a land card and a coin. However, I could not use my 5 because it does not have a camel symbol there. So those upgrade tiles are going to help enhance those values. Another thing that's going to help with your dice placement are going to be these townsfolk. So as you are acquiring these townsfolk, they are going to be tucked under your land and sea cards. This one, for example, requires a city icon. So if I were to purchase this Stargazer, I could tuck it under this city location, and now that city dice placement location always has a camel associated with it. So now I could use this 5 because there's already a camel there that fulfills that requirement. So the townsfolk are going to help you meet those requirements for your dice placement. And as you are playing the game, you're going to be acquiring more and more land cards and more sea cards that are going to give you access to more dice placement locations with their own set of requirements. So that's how the dice is going to work. Also, you're going to be able to use influence on guilds here. So the yellow guild is going to allow you to influence your dice value by 2 up or down whenever you spend an influence. And you can do that once per turn. And then as well as here, once per turn, you can spend an influence here on the blue guild in order to gain a sailboat symbol. So I could spend that and use my 5 to go here in order to gain a sea card, okay, or a water card. So that is how the dice placement is going to work. Next, let's talk about the worker placement. So unlike most worker placement games, you are going to be placing workers out onto the board. However, in this game, your workers do not go on the board. They're going to go on the cards that are going to be connected to the worker placement spots around the board. Okay, so you're going to start with a couple of workers, but each location is going to have certain color workers that can go to those locations. So up here where the town folks are, you are going to only be able to place green workers. Here with land, it's going to be green or yellow workers. With the water locations, you're going to have green or blue. And with the inspiration cards, you are going to be able to use any color. All right. But how this is going to work is that only one worker of each color can go to each location. So if I wanted to, let's say, play this blue worker here in order to take this gain and upgrade action, I could do that. However, in the future, so long as this worker is still here, another blue worker cannot come and take this action. So you're still going to be interfering with other players and where they are able to go. So in order for someone to go there, they would either have to play a green worker to take that action, or they would have to get this worker removed, which is possible through actions. You're going to be able to remove workers from the board, or as you're playing and buying up these cards, when you buy a card that has a worker on it, you get to keep that worker. Okay, so you're not just going to be buying these new locations. You might also be able to get some additional workers. Everything is going to slide down, and you're going to have availability for that spot again. Okay, so that's how that is going to work with the worker placement. Okay, the last thing that you are going to be able to do is going to be resting. So on your board, I talked a little bit about how you have this starting townsfolk. This is essentially the equivalent to having one of your townsfolk tucked under. Now, this obviously needs an open sea, but I'm just going to do this for example. If I had purchased this townsfolk and I was able to tuck it, I would then have access to this additional rest action. So whenever I take a rest, I would then be able to re-roll my dice. But if I only have 0 or 1 dice available when I take the rest action, I'm going to gain additional benefits. So I might be able to journal, gain some additional resources, maybe put some influence on the board, or even move my influence around. Okay, and that is going to be important for knowing when you want to rest, and it kind of keeps people from resting multiple times too soon, that kind of stuff. And so that's how you're going to get your dice refreshed. That's how you're going to get some extra resources, and that's going to be a pretty big main way to be able to journal, unless you obviously have like dice placement locations that are going to let you journal. And as you're journaling, you're going to be moving up this track. Now, the beginning, the first one, there is no requirement for you to advance. So as I move up, if I'm the first person to come to a location that is adjacent to these green workers, then I will claim that worker. All right. And then I will take the benefit of that location. However, you can see as I progress, I'm going to have requirements that I need. I'm going to need maybe 2 castle symbols or a vista symbol. Or I might need a certain number of stars or planets, or I might have to get rid of influence or that kind of stuff. Okay, so you're going to be collecting a ton of icons. This game is icon overload. And you're going to have primary icons, you're going to have secondary icons. And you're going to be collecting these because at the end of the game, you're going to score points for how many you have of each icon. And if you have sets of icons, you are going to be scoring points for that as well. So collecting those different symbols onto your panorama is going to be important. And sometimes collecting those symbols, so like for example, if I had this vista, right, this tells me that in future turns, every time I gain a vista, I'm going to be able to take this additional, I'm going to have this additional benefit. And some of my townsfolk are going to enhance that because this townsfolk here wants to be placed at a vista. So if I were to layer that there place him at this vista location, now whenever I gain this vista, I'm also going to get this added bonus. So not only are your townsfolk going to help with your dice placement, they're going to enhance some whenever you take a certain action or get a certain icon, they're going to enhance what you're getting back there, or they're going to enhance your resting. Okay, so that's how your townsfolk are going to play in. All right. Now, let me real briefly go over your space cards and inspiration cards, because as you're going to be purchasing these, which is going to be a huge way to score points. So all of these space cards have scoring objectives at the top. So let's say at some point you buy this and you put this out on your board. This is going to score you 1 point plus a point for every single planet icon that you have, including the one that's on this card. So you might be going for planets, or you might be going for comets, because whoever has the most comets at the end of the game, all their comet cards are going to be worth 4 points. Or I might want this one because I'm going for a ton of influence on the Black Guild here, and every 2 influence there is going to give me an extra point. Because these are going to be important. You're going to be able to take extra actions, adjusting the values, getting sailing symbols. You're going to be able to increase your journaling. But also, whoever has the most influence at these guilds are going to score 3 points at the end of the game. So these are going to be big ways to score points during the game. All right. And as you are moving up this journaling, and there's a couple cards that allow you to gain these inspiration cards. So you're going to gain 1, well, at most 3 during your journaling track. But let's say you get one of these inspirations. These are kind of like your townsfolk, except for they tuck behind your space cards. Townsfolk are under your water and land. Inspiration is going to tuck under your space. And what this is going to do is that if you achieve this accomplishment, so here, if I have 5 city icons at the end of the game, I'm going to double the number of points that this space card provides for me. So this is going to be something to give you an objective to work towards as you are trying to get these points, okay? So that's how your space and your inspiration cards are going to work. You're, again, going to get points for having majority here at the end of the game. But hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of how this game is going to work with the dice placement, the worker placement, the resting action, the little bit of a race that's going on here. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of how the game's going to work. I didn't go too much into placing influence on cards. That's just a whole nother thing. But there's a lot that goes in this game. There's costs that go with everything. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how it's played. So let's go ahead and go back up top and give you guys our final thoughts. All right, so as you can see, there's a lot that goes into this game. So hopefully that helps a little bit about how it works. But let's jump into this because I was really excited when I got this game. I was really excited when it came out. This is the first game of a new trilogy, and I'm a huge Garfield / Sam Phillips fanboy. So this was a big one for me. So let's go ahead. We'll jump and dig right into it. And let's talk about our positives. What did you think? What were your positives? What did you love?
Positives were, I like the art. I think this art is, like, in a way different. I mean, it is a different game in general. Like you said, different trilogy.
It is a different game. Good job.
Yes.
Continue.
Okay.
No, I agree. The art does look a little different from their other sets, especially because it's not so much focusing on the people. It's focusing more on the landscape and the sky.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm just giving her a hard time.
Yeah,
Go
I know. And so I like that you can build up this panorama of, like, the cities, and you have the space portion on top, that it's like it all fits together like a puzzle. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, I think that's really cool, because then at the end you feel like you really truly built something. And I love games like that where you can take your cards or take your pieces and it fits together, like, no matter what. And it just ends up, being this, like, beautiful scenery. So I think I did like that it wasn't so much focused on the people, that it was the landscape stuff. I thought the space portion was cool. Like, I was a fan of getting, like, the comets and the planets and all of that. Like, that was my, like, kind of go-to, I guess, in the game.
Yeah, you were all about those comets all the time, it seemed like.
Yeah, I like that. But I like, worker placement games, with this being worker placement. The dice placement, though, I liked that better than other games that use the dice. I thought that was, like, a neat part of the game.
Like the caravan where you built up the different values of your dice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can score points, like, in so many different ways in this game. So it's not like you have to do one specific thing.
It's a lot of icon collection.
Yeah.
A lot
pretty
of
much
collecting different icons to score points.
Right. So you do have to, build off of that. But yeah, those would be like my positives for it.
Okay. Yeah. My positives, you can tell, I feel like you can tell a lot went into, a lot of thought, a lot of research, a lot of effort went into this game. And I think they're just building off of where they have been with the North Sea games and then the West Kingdom and now the South Tigris.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like it was very intricately put together in a really nice way. I thought they did a really good job with the mechanisms. I like the twist on, I feel like there's still a twist on worker placement because I'm not putting a worker on the board. I'm putting workers on cards. And then the only way to get those workers back, like it's not like a rest action in normal worker placement where then you collect all your workers and then you go again. Now it's like they're out there for anybody to grab. But in order for me to get them, I either have to have an ability to get them or I have to buy the cards that they're on. So I thought that was really interesting that they were out there and maybe made some cards more appealing because they had workers on them. And so I really like that aspect of the worker placement. I like the dice placement portion because again, you were building up your caravan and making certain values maybe more valuable and trying to manipulate your dice so you could always get those values.
Yeah.
But then I did also like on the panorama that we talked about how you could just, as you build it out, you're getting more and more options for your dice. So I could buy a card that has a new dice placement that makes this action a little bit better. Or, when I buy a space card, I get a discount or whatever it is. It just gives you some more options when it comes to placing your dice. And there are a ton of options to do on your turn. Yes, you're either placing a dice or you're placing a worker, but there's a lot to manage with, do I have enough coins? Do I have enough provisions? There's a lot of management. Do I spend this influence in order to do X, Y, or Z? How do I change my dice in order to get what I need? All that kind of stuff, and it all kind of ties in. I thought that there was a lot of thought and effort that went into making this game. So I appreciate that. You already hit on the art. Oh, and let me point out, we finally have a Garfield game that is a normal size box. You don't have to buy a collector's box yet. There's already room in the insert for what looks like expansions. So I'm assuming we will be good with this box for a while. I hope this will have to be the only box. And this was one of the inserts that I actually liked. So of all the games, I usually give Garfield games a tough time when it comes to the insert. This one I actually think works pretty well. So I do appreciate that. So I'll stop rambling on about the positives. Let's get into the negatives. You don't have any negatives for this game, right?
No, I do have negatives. I felt like there was just too much going on in this game. For me, it was too long. I think that it felt like it was too long because we couldn't get to the end depending on like what cards and what symbols you had because they weren't coming up, and it was almost like you were like, okay, let me buy a card that I don't need because I need to see if I can get a planet to be able to move forward or a library book to be able to move forward. And so it was like I kept just like, let me get this card, let me get that card, let me get this, because I cannot find that symbol, and I was like stuck on that track to be able to, move the game along. And it was like one of us had to get to the end for the game to be over, and it was like, and then you got stuck and then couldn't move, and so I just felt like that just prolongs the game so much. And I don't know, I feel like there's just, for me, that was like a big negative for me, because I'm like, I feel like it's just being prolonged for no reason. So that was for me, and I felt like it was just too much kind of going on. Like it needed to be honed in on maybe like a little less.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
I think those are really just like the biggest negatives for me, honestly.
Yeah, I think I do have some negatives. I'm not gonna ride this huge wave. I feel like I've been building it up like, oh, I love it.
Yeah.
But I do have problems with it. This is not as clean and straightforward when it comes to iconography as they are known for when it comes to their previous trilogies. I feel like there's gonna be a little bit more referencing after. It's gonna take you a few games to figure it out. But it's not as intuitive as it has been in the past. Yes, there's that luck of I need the symbols, but there were, and I like that, okay, players control how quickly or how long this game is going to take. However, there were games where if we're competing over comments or whatever we're trying to do, there's only so many of these observatories and library icons or planet icons, and you can go like a whole game without seeing a single planet, or you'll never see the sun and the moon or whatever. But there were times when it was like we were competing over comments, and I get into an area where I either need 6 comments or like 3 libraries, and we didn't see libraries hardly at all during the game. And I was just buying space cards just for the sake of buying a space card and hope that a comet would come out. Or trying to spend my provisions so I could draw 3 land cards and hoping that I could find libraries. Like I was just buying cards just to buy cards because we were stuck. And I was like, I just want to get to the end. And there were some times when I was like, I just feel like this is getting dragged out. And there were those things, and that was a little bit of a pain for me.
Well, and it was almost like, okay, so a card comes out that you know the other person needs, and you're like, just take it.
Because I want you to finish the game.
Yes.
I want you to be able to advance, because then the game is going to end a little sooner.
Like, you may want it, but you're like, okay, but I need to let the other person take it, because otherwise we're going to sit here for like another hour.
So there is that problem. I do have another problem, is that like, you don't get to see very many of those inspiration cards. At most, you're going to get, I think, 5. Because I think you can get 1 instantly from a water card, maybe 1 instantly from a space, and that's if they come up, because there's only 1.
Yeah.
And then you have to move all the way up to that track and pick the right one at the end that gives you an inspiration, so you might get 5. Yes, those are big point swings, because if you achieve those, it doubles what you score. But I really would have liked, when I was getting bogged down, I kind of wish I could have had some more. That way it gave me some more direction. Okay, instead of me just buying stuff just for the sake of buying stuff, I would like to be able to have like a little side thing. Like, oh, I need these icons. But if I can't move up the track, then I can't get the inspiration cards that I need so I can focus on that. So I did think that was a little frustrating. I would like to have been able to get more of those inspiration cards. Another thing I did not care for, because it never seemed to matter, and that was putting influence on cards. Who cares? Who cared? Nobody cared. It was not a big deal. And I honestly think, like, just cut that out of the game. Like, it was just not something anybody really worried about. Like, it was just never a thing. And then I was like, oh, I wish I didn't have influence on those cards, because I'd rather put them in the guilds. Yeah, I'd rather use the abilities of the guilds instead of wasting them on sitting on these cards, because either you're just not going to go there, or it's I don't know, it's just kind of a waste, I thought. So I didn't really care for that part of the game either. Also, I didn't feel like there were a ton, at least in the games we played. I would have liked to have even been able to build up my rest a little bit more, getting more resources, getting more influence, or manipulating my influence for those town folks cards. I mean, and that's a minor gripe there, but I would like to have been able to build up. When I rest, it would have been even more powerful, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, that was just my thoughts. I did have a little bit of so yeah, I feel like a lot of people are like, this is going to be my new Garfield game. This is not my new favorite one.
No.
Paladins is still my number 1 when it comes to Garfield games, but I do agree with you that it's, you know, I feel like in other ones are like, okay, we look at this cool new thing we did. We did this one cool new thing, and now I think we're getting to that point to where we're really pushing that envelope of this is getting to be a lot.
Yeah.
And I think some people that this is on their higher echelon of middle heavy game. And I'm like, ooh, how much longer do we ride this wave? Because I don't think this is going to get to the table very often.
No.
Because teaching this to somebody is going to be a burn. And trying to understand that and getting it to the table with people is going to be difficult. And so I don't think this is going to get to the table as easily or as fast as Paladins would, or as Architects would, or even Viscounts. And Viscounts doesn't hit the table very often now anyway. But this one is a lot to teach, and it does have its issues. So it's not perfect, but so I'll stop rambling. Let's go ahead and jump into our final scores. I know you're going to be lower than me, so let's go ahead and let's rip the Band-Aid off for me.
All right, I'm gonna give this like a 5.
Okay.
It's not that I hate it. It's just that I think it is, like, for me, it's just too heavy and too long. Like, and we already, talked about why that is and things like that. But what gives it even a 5 for me is, like, the art and, the, positives that I talked about.
I'm still going to skew on the higher side, but I will say I don't know if the amount of effort and time I put into the game, I don't think I get a good return of fun back. So with that being said, I'm going to give it a 7.9. Because my fanboy says I should give it an 8. My fanboy says it should be an 8. But a part of me wants to give it a 7.5. But I'm going to give it a 7.9.
You're being generous.
Yeah. So I'm hoping maybe they can fix some of those things. Maybe give us some different ways to get those icons so that I don't get stuck on the journaling track.
Yeah.
Or let me get some more inspiration cards. I know expansions are coming. What is that going to look like? I'll be curious to see without maybe feeling more overwhelmed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is going to be Wayfarers of the South Tigris, the first game of the new trilogy. So very exciting. I'm still going to be looking forward to the next one that comes out. So this one's going to be sticking around for now. Maybe it'll grow on me. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But until next time, please like, comment, subscribe, and click the little bell icon so you get a notification every single time we post a video. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.
See ya.